I'm a pretty big fan of YouTube. Uh, I spend a lot of my time just watching content, um, whether it be educational or or maybe entertaining or a little bit of both. For me, there has to be some kind of educational value there. It's got to be there. Anyway, you know, I've started to think about the value that I provide when I come on here. To the few followers that I have. Uh, and this stuff used to provide me, sorry, a lot of therapeutic relief. Certainly when I started doing it, I have found other ways since to kind of get to that place. Sometimes just sitting down, having a coffee, maybe reading a book, maybe not, does it for me. Point being, you know, like I said, I get a certain amount of value out of the stuff I watch, and it makes me question, especially lately. It makes me question what I bring to the table in that sense. And you know, I I realized, going back to what I watch, that a lot of that value, I bring it in for myself, or I see it, I extract it from what I'm consuming. You know, I decide what I'm interested in watching, and that changes day by day. If I decide I'm interested in watching something, I watch it, and that's where it starts. There's value there because I'm interested in the first place. Um, and there's the easy, there's the access right there. And so I begin to consume what I'm consuming, right? And I have an open mind. I have a mind that is involved and is ready to consume and to absorb information, knowledge, whatever. Same goes when you're reading a book. If you're interested in that book, you're going to be a lot more open to the information that you're extracting from it. And so when I look at the stuff that I'm producing here, I begin to realize that it's not so much about the value I'm giving. Uh, I could, if I did this long enough and I developed it to a certain degree, I could provide some pretty high grade stuff. And if somebody's just not really feeling it, they're not feeling it, right? It's not going to do much for them. On the other hand, I've had situations where I'm sure I have produced something relatively shitty, relatively, not great, and somebody, for whatever reason, maybe they were just having a certain type of day, where what I was saying got their attention. They wanted to hear it, right? And it came to them at the right time. And that person was willing to put in the time and the energy to dissect what I was saying and pick through it and pick up the pieces, even if maybe I wasn't being particularly coherent. Maybe I wasn't having the greatest day myself. Maybe I just wasn't bringing a lot of structure to that post. I wasn't making much sense, but that person wanted to hear what I was saying. It happens. Same goes with me. Sometimes I'm watching something and the quality is not through the roof. It's not the greatest, but there's something there that I'm seeing. I'm interested in the subject matter. It draws my attention in some way, and I'm ready to consume. My mind is an open vessel, so to speak. That happens. Sometimes the content can be just top notch. I mean, just out of this fucking world stuff that you should probably be paying for. And it's not always like that. You know, the quality may be there and most people might pay for it, but you're just not in the right state of mind, you know. It just kind of makes me think about the concept of value. You know, value isn't necessarily the sole responsibility of the creator or the person who's providing it, let's say. The consumer. The consumer has a great deal to do with it. I don't want to call it a responsibility, but maybe it is. You know, you could give somebody a shit sandwich, let's say, a literal shit sandwich, and maybe they're starving to death and they're going to eat that thing and they're going to love you for it. They're going to be very appreciative. That didn't sound great. I apologize, but my point is value is very is relative, and it is circumstantial, and it is very subjective, and it varies by it varies by individual. Certainly, you know, I said it was relative and circumstantial. It varies by time, by place, by culture. I won't provide too many examples. I mean, I think you can connect the dots here if you're watching, you know, but, you know, certainly, you know, in I've been to places around the world where things are valued more in general, but particular things are valued more in one place than they are in another. It could be due to scarcity. It could be due to cultural brainwashings, let's call them. It could be due to a lot of different things, but it happens. You know, value. I guess what I'm trying to say is you should never put too much of an obligation on yourself when it comes to providing value. Under any circumstances, in any scenario, because let me word this properly. You shouldn't put too much of a strain on yourself, but you should go out of your way a little bit if it's being appreciated. That's the key. You know, if you're trying to provide a service, a value, whatever, and it's not receiving the reaction you think it should be, then maybe you should rethink your efforts. You know, maybe you should direct them towards something that's actually going to be, you know, given appreciation. And it's not a hit on anybody. You know, it's not like it's not that you're a problem or that the other side is a problem. It's that, you know, yeah, maybe what you're providing isn't being valued for a good reason. You know, maybe your judgment is in the wrong place, and maybe it's not. You know, maybe you're judging the situation properly, and what your efforts not being appreciated. You got to take all that into consideration. But certainly, you should go out of your way to provide what the situation requires. Why not? I mean, what is the purpose of going in the other direction? It's not going to do you any good. Sorry. It's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do anybody else any good.